because I don't know if I have, David will correct me on the science, but we're under the impression he invented the universe. So I may have oversimplified his work.
So, because of the show, it was the first time I was ever in the room with Stephen Hawking as well.
But we wound up kind of hanging with Stephen Hawking for a while. We got invited to his birthday party.
Yeah.
And he also, we shot him at Caltech.
He was so drunk.
Hey, I mean, like, if you're a science consultant and Stephen Hawking's there, did you guys, like, throw down?
We did a little bit, but I asked him about meeting the Queen.
Oh, and it takes Professor Hawking a long time to answer a question, so it took him, and then the protocol is you go on with the rest of your conversation and you wait for him to type it in. He uses his cheek muscle to move a mouse to type. So at the end of the meal, he came back with, "She's a right old bird" or something.
Or a very nice girl.
So yeah, something like that.
Tara, we've got to meet somebody through the show that you're excited about, I think.
Well, How to Train Your Dragon is like my favorite movie.
Yeah! An excellent piece of work! Why isn't there a final? I don't know!
I'm totally freaking out, Greg. I love you.
Thanks very much. Well, are you one of the more recent members of the? Because you seem much younger and more attractive than the other.
Greg? Yeah, I've been on the show. I think we're kind of up here by how long we've been on the show. So Jeremy and I are newer staff members. We've been on about 2.5.
Now, is that an intimidating thing to walk into a show like this where everything is established and they have their ways?
Do we look
and then you
intimidating?
walk in, yup, ideas about things.
They're adorable. Oh yes, you said yes. Yes. There's a lot of. It's intimidating. Writing is hard and difficult, but you know, you walk into a room where, like you said, we get to talk about Star Wars and we play D&D together and.
I think it's also important to remember that when this show began, and it's easy to forget this, but when the show began, this kind of thing was not as popular. It wasn't like the network were saying, let's make a show about geeks and nerds. I mean, when it started, there was a lot of scoffing within CBS, because I was in my 10th year or something at the time, but when you guys started, there was a lot of kind of, yeah, that will work. Yeah, Chuck's finally lost his mind, you know, and it was...
But, we never set out to do a show about geeks or nerds. We were making a show about people we knew.
Right.
And, the basis for the original basis for the characters was guys that I knew when I had been a computer programmer, and I started talking to Chuck about those guys. And then we changed it. We didn't want to be programmers because that had over the years become like the Microsoft money thing, and we didn't want it to be that. But it was still, it was just based on people we knew and stuff we liked, and then you bring these people aboard, and the story when Maria interviewed for the job. She was hired after she told a story, and I hope I get it right because her husband is here, but as best I remember, will you tell it? It had to do with a present?
Yeah, I had asked for a Phantom Blade in World of Warcraft for my rogue from my husband for my birthday, and he got me like a tangible thing in the world instead. Like, I don't even remember what it was. It was like not what I asked for.
But you had also mined for gold to
okay, because for his birthday I had gotten him a lunacy deck, which was, at the time, this is a long time ago guys, but it was a big deal. Because I had to get all those cards, and it took forever, and I was just, I don't know, it took like a 10-hour time commitment. I felt like it wasn't too much. I mean, you can make a Phantom Blade, or a weaponsmith,
So when you add in these people with problems like my husband and I fought because I bought him a virtual present and he'd gotten some horrible thing in the real world. And then, and Steve Holland, who loves Star Wars too much, and Eric Kaplan, who doesn't appreciate a lot of things, like Star Wars or Johnny Carson.
I just feel that one of the good things about science fiction is it helps people think that the world is comprehensible, and Star Wars appeals to this mystical notion of the Force. I don't know.
Hey, Eric, do you write write a lot of Sheldon speaking? I feel I found the voice within the voice here. What about the point of you get to a situation now where you have a cast which is very well established, that they know their characters very well, and hopefully everything's going to be fine. And do you now consult at this point in the life of a sitcom? Do you actually talk to the actors about how things are going? Do you take their input?
Yeah, we do talk to them.
Yeah.
I get excited about the stories we're doing, and I'll often tell them, hey, this is coming up. And Johnny Galecki has told me that that he actually enjoys that and finds that helpful, because he knows, sometimes it's just words on a page and it's not readily apparent the tone of the mood we're going for. So it's very helpful for us to talk about it.
So what if you joined the show a few years in, or a little bit into the life of the show, and you've seen the actors do this work, and you have ideas for how you would like that character to go, or a story that would like to happen to the actor, and the actor doesn't feel that way about it? Does that cause friction? Is there such a thing as friction?
We've never had that experience. Sarah, I'm not...
No, I'm with you.
And I hope you're not watching this and getting ideas.
No, I think that it's just something I remembered from the long life of when I was on the Drew Carey show, that after a long time, things get set, and it's sometimes, I think, more difficult for newer people in the writer's room to find their own way within that. Do you know what I mean? Are you very encouraging of that? Are you encouraging of young people? Well, let me ask that. Is it an easy place to work your way into? Because it's not a huge writer's room, really. I mean, if this is all of you guys, it's not huge.
I was a writer's assistant for 2 years, so I eased my way into it, and just got some jokes on TV, and they promoted me, and that's how I eased into it. So.
And I was a fan of the show, so I was familiar with the characters, and then I worked on the show, like Jeremy, as an assistant for a couple seasons before.
And let's work our way up to the more seasoned writers as we go along. So, what was your experience like coming in?
It was great. I had worked with Steve Millar and Steve Holland before at Nickelodeon, so I had an easy transition as far as that goes.
What did you do at Nickelodeon?
I wrote for a show called All That, Drake and Josh. And a show called Zoe 101.
I just figured this was the room that would be familiar with your work at Nickelodeon. How about you? How long into the show before you interviewed and got the job?
I was on season 3.
Okay, so that's quite early.
There is a weirdness with the actors, though, because you've been watching the show and experiencing these characters, and then you spend all your time imagining these characters, and then you meet them, and they look like somebody you think about all day long, but you don't know them. Like, it's weird, it's awkward.
Yeah, it is.
You want to be like, what would you do in this situation? Because I can't think of it. Tell me.
That's kind of handy.
Same. The three of us joined in season 3. So,
right, okay.
So the show hadn't quite taken off. It sort of really took off. I don't know. Not saying there's a correlation between when we joined and I'll leave that to you guys to make your own call on what you think about that. But
yes.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, it was just every different show you go on has a different language, and it takes a little while to kind of learn the language of that show and the dynamic and find your place in it. But I was very fortunate to come on board when these guys did, so we could get together at the end of the day and cry. We would rotate offices, whose office we would cry and just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm failing. So do I. Oh good, I'm not alone. And this is really therapeutic. Thank you all.
And Dave and Eric, you guys have been on since the beginning, is that right?
No, Dave has been on since the beginning.
Right.
I joined at the beginning of season 2.
Season 2.
Eric, didn't you get your interview because they got the wrong Eric Kaplan?
Yes.
This is true.
There cannot
Eric
be
Kaplan
two.
was supposed to come for a meeting, and somehow wires got crossed, and this Eric showed up.
Yeah, Johnny wanted the Eric Kaplan, the gaucho from Patagonia with one of those bolos that he was swinging. And then I think Jess Amber said, he was like, well, he's the gaucho. This other Eric Kaplan wrote for Futurama, so she made the executive decision to send my resume to Bill Prady here.
We had met in New York a long time ago when Eric wrote for Spy Magazine, which was, think sort of the heir to, in a way, to Mad Magazine.
It was the Mad Magazine of the go-go 80s, that's correct.
For grown-ups.
Right, right.
But I've known him in New York, and I didn't know until afterwards we had the wrong Eric Kaplan, because when you came in, I said, oh, no, not this guy. He's very
No, Eric Kaplan's, I mean, this is not true of other names, are pretty fungible. So all Eric Kaplans, we get together, there's a sort of we don't exceed a certain level of quality, but we also make sure we don't drop below a certain level.
Now, before we go to questions from the floor, Dave, you're the only person that hasn't said a word so far. How's it going, man?
Why do you think I've been here for 8 years? I will say, when we first started season 1, it was incredible because we didn't know the show, but what we had was Bill's experiences rooting it in real life, and Chuck's experiences of having created so many shows, and that was just an incredible positive force. And I remember pitching once, before we even had the first table read of the second episode, and I pitched an idea, and Chuck looked at me and he said, "If we do that, you will ruin the show." And I said, well, let's not do that.
And since